Hi there, it's Sandra from Savvy Teaching Tips. I'd like to ask you to like and subscribe below and ring that bell so you'll get reminders of when my new videos pop up. Today we're going to be talking about hundreds charts. There are two kinds of hundreds charts. Some people's curriculum goes up to 120, and so they want a 120 chart. Some people's curriculum goes up to 100 and they want a 100 chart. So for today's purposes, I'm going to refer to both of them as hundreds charts. Doesn't matter which one you're using for these games. So the first game is called Wonderful Ones Place. And Wonderful Ones Place, each child plays individually. So you give them a hundreds chart. They also get 2 dice. So they have the choice. They can roll 1 dice or they can roll 2 dice, and that's up to them. They're learning to develop strategy when playing games. They roll the dice. Let's say they get a 5 and a 2. That's 7. So over here, we go over here to number 7, and with our crayon, we're going to color all the numbers that have a 7 in the ones place. Right? That works great. Then they're going to roll. So let's say they roll an 11. Or a 12? Well, there is no 11 or 12 on the top row, because remember, we're looking at the top row. Don't go down here and color this one. We're looking at the top row. If you get an 11 or a 12, you roll again, because you can't do that one. Then change color. It's important to change color so that we can then have an easier way of looking at the rows. And I also say to them, please don't use a color like black or dark blue. You want a color that you can read the numbers through. And then I also remind them I want good coloring, filling in all the spaces. We're not scribbling. This is not a race. Oh, it's not a race right now anyway. So if they roll a 3, they color the 3. Now, with the lower numbers, they can try a different strategy. If they roll, because you can get a 6 with 2 dice, but you can also get a 6 with 1 die. So especially the only way to get a number 1 is to roll 1 die. So there's where the strategy also, kicks in. Anyway, once they've rolled and colored the entire chart, they are done. Now, I would introduce that one day as an activity, and then maybe the next day or a day later, let's do this as a warm-up. So we're going to make it interesting, and I pass out all the dice and all the papers, and I get the kids to write their name on the back. And then when everybody's ready, I'll say go, they turn it over and they start playing the game. And then it becomes a bit of a race. So you also might want to remind them about how we roll dice. We do shake, shake, drop onto the counter with our hands above it. We don't throw the dice wildly around the room. That's not good strategy for starters if you have to get up and go chase it. But also if a kid throws the dice across the room, they get 1 warning. And if they do it again, they lose the game. They don't get to play the game. So ask them, do you want to play the game or not? If they don't want to play the game, fine. Give them something that's not fun to do. Anyway, so that's Wonderful Ones Place. The second game is called Race to 100 or Race to 120, depending on which chart you're using. So you have 2 kids. You have 1 hundreds chart and 2 counters. So I use bread tags, which are the little plasticky things that come on the end of bread rolls, but those are kind of disappearing. Like, you're either getting tape these days or recently they've been coming out with cardboard ones. But I like the plastic ones because they're different colors and they're free. I have hundreds of them. If you don't have those, bingo chips work as well, because you need something that can stack on top of each other. If the kids both land on the same number, then they're going to be on top of each other. And you want different colors because then they'll know where their counter is. So you have 2 kids, 100 chart, 2 types of counters, and 1 die that they are sharing. So I usually have the kids start beside the number 1, but they can start on the number 1 on top of each other if you want to. So they each roll the dice once. Whoever gets the highest number goes first. They roll the dice and then they count that spots and they move their counter to that spot. Then they alternate turns. The other person gets the dice, they roll it, blah, blah, blah. We go all the way up the 100 chart. First person to land on or cross 100 or 120 wins the game. Super simple. They love this game. You can also do an individual race to 100. So you have one chart for one child, and they have one, they don't need counters this time, they're going to use crayons. So they have their crayons, they have one dice, they have a 100 chart, and they roll the dice and say they get the number 4. Well, let's pick the color pink. I'm going to color 1, 2, 3, all the numbers up to number 4. Okay, now I'm going to roll the dice again, so I have to change colors. And they can, use 2 colors, just go back and forth, or they can use all their colors. I just tell them it's really important that they have to change colors so I can see that they colored the number on the dice. Because if the whole thing is one color, then I can't tell. I can't look at it and say, oh, they understood what the process of this was. They didn't understand it, or I have no proof. So changing colors is an important part of following instructions. If they roll, they get 1, 2, 3, 4 in pink, and then they roll a 3. Well, I'm going to pick a blue. I'm going to color 5, 6, and 7, and this continues until they fill up the entire chart. So that's individual race to 100. So the last game is called Off the Chart. And with this gun, you need special dice. So I make these special dice. You go to the dollar store, and they sell little wooden cubes in a bag. And sometimes they're all wood colored, which is fine. Or sometimes they've been colored with paint or something. So either way, they both work fine. And get a Sharpie, because you're going to turn this into special dice. So on 2 of the sides, I write +10. And on 2 other sides, I write -10. And then on the ends, I write +1 and -1. So all 6 sides are now covered. Something to note, I've so far only talked about addition, +10. And I haven't even talked about +1 yet. So at this point, you will need to have taught them how about going going down the columns is +10, going up the columns is -10, going to the right is +1, going to the left is -1. Kids really struggle on the ends of the rows if they're at 40 and they roll a +1. They don't always know, sometimes they go down to 50, or they don't always know to go across and down, or they might go back to 31 instead of going to 41. But that's kind of how this game helps them. It helps reinforce how the 100 chart works. So this is why it's so good. Anyway, so I have a dice with all these special instructions on the 6 sides, and there's 2 kids, 1 special dice, and they have counters or bread tags. So they each have 1, and then they start in the middle of the chart. So on a 100 chart, you would start at 50. In a 120 chart, you would start on 60. Because that's pretty much the middle of the chart. So they're both on top of that number. That's why we need the counters to be able to stack on top of each other. They roll the dice, and they do what the dice says. So if the dice says +10, they have to go down 1. If the dice says +1, they have to go to the right 1. -1 to the left 1, -10 up. And either way they go, some kids, because I didn't want it to be just this way. It only works this way, going to 100. If you start on 0 and go up to 100, it doesn't work so well if you keep getting minus numbers at the beginning. -10, -1. So that's why I like to start in the middle. You can go this way and you can go that way, and the kids can conceptualize the subtraction part. So the first person who gets off the chart completely wins, and you can get off the chart by going past 1 and getting down to 0. You can go off the chart by going past 100 and getting to 101, or whatever, 120. That's why it's called off the chart. It doesn't matter if they go off on the bottom or off on the top. Sometimes this game can take forever because kids are just going back and forth. So at some point you have to give them a time limit and wrap it up. If they play the game and they finish before the other kids do, you say, great, play again. Let the other person start. They can also play with 3 kids if you have an odd number of students. So that's how this works. So that is off the chart. And all these games are really great because the kids are moving, they're rolling the dice, they're coloring, they're not sitting there doing boring addition and subtraction questions, And you know, there's that level of competition depending on, you know, your students, you know what they can handle. And especially with the older students, it can become a reward at the end of an activity or things for early finishers to do. So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to check out my Facebook and my Instagram at Savvy Teaching Tips and my TikTok at Savvy Teaching. Bye for now.